They may not know everything about sports, but the view from their couch is pretty good. So kick back and enjoy a brew, because you know they already are. Here is Eric Dorsch.
They're crazy enough to let me be in charge.
Russ Ivanek.
8 out of 10 from the judges. 5 out of 10 from the German judge.
And Justin Marcus.
Our best defense has been long, hard, and yellow all year long.
This is Armchair Sports Talk.
All right, welcome into Armchair Sports Talk. As always, I'm your host, Eric Dorsch. Usually we try to start the show with, something fun, something light, something upbeat, but unfortunately I don't think we're going to be able to do that today. There's only one way to start the show, and I think both my co-hosts will agree with me on this. Unfortunately, the other day, Detroit lost a legend in the game of hockey. Ted Lindsay passed away at the age of 93. Terrible Ted, terrific Ted, whatever you want to call him. Ted Lindsay was a big contributor to Detroit hockey, made it what it is today, and for the fact that he was a little guy out there, I think everybody in the league feared him. It was a sad, sad day. I was fortunate to have an opportunity to speak to him one time, and he couldn't have been nicer. For someone who had a reputation of being such a hard-ass kind of guy, he was very, very nice to me. He, took the time, and that's something I'll always remember. As we were talking to start this show, I'll bring in Russ Ivanek. Russ, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing okay, all things considered.
It's
a sad, somber moment for Detroit sports.
Yeah, and Justin Marcus, I know you're sitting there too, and we were talking before the show. This is a tough one because all of us being Red Wing fans, Ted Lindsay was a fixture. You were telling a story about not even realizing you got a chance to meet him when you were younger, but that he was just an absolute fixture in Joe Louis. He came here, played multiple years on the production line, was traded away, and just couldn't get Detroit out of his head. He came back, finished his career here, and then never left. So, Justin, for you, when you think Detroit hockey, how instrumental was Ted Lindsay to making this hockey town?
It's extremely. Just there's so many things I'm even learning now that he did off the ice that doesn't even pertain to hockey, or trying to push into the NHLPA to create that for the first time. Like, this dude was more than just 60 minutes on skates. Like, it blows me away the new things I keep learning and the accomplishments and what he did and what he missed out on to go do other things. Like, it's just, you get those kind of characters that play sports, but then they're also a decent human being. It's legendary. It's legendary stuff for our city.
It absolutely is. And I mean, to think about it, if you go through the laundry list of players that Detroit has had over the years, it would be very, very hard not to have this guy. And I know we made the list a year ago, but it would be very, very hard if you're making a Mount Rushmore for Detroit hockey. He almost has to be a guaranteed fixture in that Mount Rushmore, Russ.
Oh, absolutely. And you could even contend that he would be on the Mount Rushmore for the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk about a few things that we wouldn't have in the NHL without him. We wouldn't have the Players Union.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have wives and families at the Hall of Fame for your Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have the tradition of skating around the rink with the cup after you win it. And we wouldn't have penalties for elbows and kneeing. Like, this guy was a force for change on the ice in good ways to create traditions, and off the ice to help communities in ways that we're still going to see those ripples for a long time. Like, this was a monument of a man, and 5'8" never looked bigger than when he was in that number 7 sweater.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
It was something else.
Well, and I love that one because the other day I was working when it happened, so I was on the radio running shows, and that was the piece of trivia that I was able to stump everybody with. What was Ted Lindsay known for that didn't happen before he played? And he was the first one to ever skate up and say, give me this thing, pick it up and skate it around and really include the fans in this thing. This is your cup. We play for you guys. We play as we're representing your city and our city, and we wouldn't have that. It would be a bunch of guys huddled around a little folding table with the cup on it, and it would just be a tradition that would be a shame not to have. And then obviously the elbowing and all that that's always good to hear because you hear the stories. I was telling you guys before the show, I heard the story of Gordy talking about how he had never realized how insanely competitive Ted Lindsay was until he saw Ted skate up, and I forget who they were playing. They were playing a team, and Ted went up and had a chat with another guy, asked how his family was, excited for them to go out to dinner the following day. It was just, they were very excited. He was excited to see him. 2 seconds into the first shift, Ted puts the guy on the boards and just starts wailing on him. And you realize that this guy had all the friends in the world off the ice, but on the ice, if you weren't wearing the wing wheel, you were in trouble. It was going to be a bad, bad day for you if you got anywhere near him. And in hearing those stories, he really kind of was the first enforcer for a big scorer. I mean, he looked out for Gordy. You put your hands on Gordy, and I'm going to come after you, and you're going to have to face me. And I'm not big, but I'm not going down. I'm gonna take you to the ground before you're gonna take me down.
So, yeah, he didn't shy.
Yeah. What's up, Jay?
Yeah. No, the perfect balance for that was like the most shocking thing I learned this week just on the ice for him.
Yeah.
I didn't know that he led the league, and he's the only player to ever lead the league in goals, assists, points, and penalty minutes all at the same time. Like, that's the type of stuff I do on NHL 19 right now with the Bruins and my being a pro. Like, I'm just like, the announcers will rip me a new one and I'll score a hat trick. And it's like, that doesn't happen in today's hockey. But he led the league in all of those stats. But he was still gifted to score goals, but he'll beat the shit out of you if he has to.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I have his stats in front of me. I mean, for all the toughness we talk about, this guy had 380 goals, 472 assists, 850 points, and he had almost twice that in penalty minutes. This guy, he really was the epitome of someone who could do it all. I mean, I'm looking here. He's got a couple seasons, in the upper 30s for goals. I mean, he really could play the game of hockey. He could beat you any way you wanted. One night you want to go out and have a shooting match, he'll beat you there. But you want to try to get physical, he's not going to back down from that challenge either. So it really is impressive that this guy by statures today, he would be too tiny to play in the NHL. I mean, 5'8" it's not going to cut it. And this guy did it at a time where you didn't have very much in the way of protective gear. He was, we were talking about the gloves beforehand. I don't know how anybody could score with that equipment, with those gloves, those things. You can't even turn your wrist. I mean, anything but a slap shot you can't do. So it's just amazing, and it's a very sad day. Like I said, I had the opportunity to speak to him one time. Unfortunately, after Gordie Howe passed away, I was working the Frank Beckman show, and we got him on the line because we wanted him to, talk about Gordie and all that. So I called him up and just said, we'd love to have you on. We're going to be about 10, 15 minutes away. Do you want me to call you back? And he said, absolutely, yeah, call me back. And I said, okay, well, I'll call you back in about 10, 12 minutes, and we'll get you on. He asked my name. I said, my name's Eric. I'm the producer for today. I'll be the one calling you. He says, okay, Eric, if it's not you, I'm not going to take the call. And I thought that was sweet. So I hung up the phone. About 10 minutes later, I call him back. He picks it up. The first thing he says is, that better be you, Eric. And I said, it's me. We're going to get you on here in a few minutes, and you can talk to Frank. Put him on hold. He did his thing with Frank Beckman, gave all the great stories about Gordie. I picked it up afterwards and said, thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. Really not expecting much. Just kind of expecting, okay, thank you, have a nice day. But I picked up the phone and I thanked him, and he first thing he said was, how'd I do, Eric? You did great. It was fantastic. You did great. Oh, that's good, Eric. Are you a hockey fan, Eric? Yes, I'm a hockey fan. I'm a very, very big fan. Me and my buddies, we talk about you guys all the time. And he's like, well, that's good. And he genuinely could have hung up the phone and got on with his day. But I genuinely had to tell him, I'd love to keep talking to you, but I have to go. We have other people to get. And he was just the sweetest guy, had about a 5-minute conversation with me. And at the end of it, all it was, well, you have a nice day, Eric, and I'm going to talk to you soon. And that was the thing. I guarantee you, if I had called him a week later, he wouldn't remember my name. He wouldn't remember who I was. But for that 5 minutes, I felt like I knew Ted Lindsay. Like if I walked up and said, hey, guys, guess what? You want to hang out with Ted Lindsay tonight? I got it. I'll call him. He'll remember me. I felt that moment, and that's a connection that you don't get with people. I told you before. I've been fortunate. I played golf with Jason Hansen one time. I've met Joe Dumars. I've met people throughout this, and no one has ever made me feel like I'm actually an equal in the eyes more than Ted Lindsay. And that's just something you don't get today, and I think it's a lost art. It's something that every athlete in the world should be doing, because without the fans, you don't have anything. If no one watches these games, you're not getting your $1 million contracts to play this sport. So it was just a big thing, and it's a very sad thing that there's no more Ted Lindsay in Detroit. And like you said, Jay, they're wearing the 7 tonight for him, and I just think that's an amazing thing.
Oh, absolutely. He was a tremendous character for as tremendous of a player as he was. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. His humility matched his skill, and it was. If we had more characters like this, the world would be a lot better off.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to talk about him again because we've got a little special. In replace of Play of the Week, we're going to have a little special content, but we've got a few other things we want to talk to before we get to that. My first question, because at the end of last show, I felt like there was a sport we were leaving off the table, and I just want to lead off with, so my first question is for you, Russ. How do you feel about the new PGA rule about where you can drop the ball when taking a penalty stroke?
I think your ball should only drop once, and that's probably around puberty.
I can't lie to you. Jay and I had that planned out from earlier today, and it was just it worked out perfectly. It was great.
Yeah, I got nothing more than that.
That's fine. For those who don't new to the show, and that Russ is not a big golf guy. We can only get him to talk about it once in a blue moon, and that's usually around a major when he looks at a sheet of odds and picks the guy with the best odds.
Or the best name.
Or the best name. That's true. So that I just had to do that. No, but in all seriousness, we have to touch on it real quick. Obviously, I don't think any of us watched the combine with a fine-tooth comb. I'm sure we all saw some of it, got that here and there. But my real question is, as we gear up for the draft coming in just over a month, when you look at these Detroit Lions, we know we have a kind of rough idea what this team's going to look like going into draft night. There might be a signing here or there that we're not aware of. But, Russ, when you look at it, what position did the Lions need to most be looking at when they have drafted or when they evaluated these players in the combine?
No, it's the defensive front seven. Any kind of edge rusher, any kind of linebacker at all. I think that's where Detroit has to attack early and often in this draft. And it looks like it's a very deep, very fast group of front seven defensive players here. We had both the fastest ever linebacker 40 time and the fastest ever defensive lineman 40 time. So there's a lot of talent here. It seems like a deep class. Please, Bob Quinn. Please. Just please.
Yeah, I gotcha. And then secondly, what's the position they most need to stay the hell away from? What's the one that you can see them getting baited into going for?
Oh, my God, if they take a tight end in the first round, I'm going to lose my mind.
There it is. There it
is. Slam dunk. That's the one.
That's the one. Stay away from that one. All right, Justin, you got the two questions. Answer them how you want. Where do they need to be looking? Where do they need to stay as far away as they can?
Well, I'll start with the easier one, which is, the recency of the tight end history with the Lions is just such a shitty one that you almost want to be like, I don't care how good he is. I don't care what you say, what school he comes from, how much you want to talk him up. It's like, just don't do it. I think we've been operating so many years without a tight end. For whatever reason, I think we can go one more year. But position that they need, I'm still torn between defense and wideout. I loved seeing what I saw at DK Metcalf, and obviously he's getting all the praise from the combine just because how big his stature is. Mm-hmm. But I am so concerned with the wide receiver position if we start actually losing people, and Kenny Galladay is going to be our feature, wideout. We have to be able to throw the ball to somebody, right? I know that's like a very cliche thing, but you have to address both. I would still address defense first. But my God, I don't know where DK Metcalf is being ranked at. But from watching the small amount of footage I did of the combine, that dude is just a tank, like a legit tank on cleats. So, yeah, of course, he's getting all the praise. So.
There's a good chance he's probably not going to be sitting there when we draft, but you never know. I could be wrong. There's a lot to do. Okay, that's fair. I was actually going to rebel against both of you and say that tight end is where they need to be looking. But
I will hang up this phone.
That's fine. I don't really. I think we've all know that I can talk for an hour straight without anyone else having to contribute.
I take it back. Please don't.
Yeah. So, I up till now, I really was with you on with that thought. I really did think tight end is where they needed to be. But, the more I think about it and the more I really process it, there's going to be these tight ends sitting in the second and third round that are going to be more than fine. That's fine. 8 is too high a price to pay for a tight end that, like we said, there's no guarantee. Offenses in college don't translate to offenses in the NFL very often. Tight ends are used in a lot more spread thing, and we need a tight end that can block just as well as he can catch. So I'm kind of with you on this, Russ. I think that front seven is right where they need to address. They need to look at it. You need to see the pieces you have, inventory what you got. I've said it all year that I think I would love to see them get another linebacker, one that's a little more coverage aware and knows, we know that he's comfortable in it, so that we can put Jared Davis on an edge and just tell him, there's the ball, go get it. Kind of like Danny Bateman from the Replacements. Go get me that ball. That's what I want from him. And I think he can do that. When it comes to ball hawking, that's something he's very, very good at. He can't cover anyone. He really does struggle, and that's a liability. So I'm with you on that. I think we all said it in the text. I'm so happy they re-signed Okora. I love that signing. I think that's absolutely great. You got snacks for a little bit. You got these pieces. Now go out and get someone that's going to fit right in there. Jared Davis is your linebacker. They didn't miss on that one. So I like that. This one might come as a shock, but the position I think they need to step back and say, okay, we're good. I think they need to stop drafting offensive linemen. I think we're all right now.
Well, yeah.
You've drafted, just think about it. You've drafted enough young talent that it's about time you say, okay, here's what we have. Let's start seeing which piece fits where. You just keep drafting these guys, you're adding more cooks in the kitchen. I get the depth and you want to have options, but at the same time, eventually you have to have a starting five that consistently stays. You can't keep plugging in week to week. You need to say, this guy's my center, my tackles, my guards, and you need to stick to it. And I just think that's got to be their stay away. If you want to draft a guy in later rounds for the depth, that's fine. You got a chance at 8 to get a real talent, whether it is wide receiver, because I'm with you, Jay. If Metcalf's sitting there, it's really hard to not say, you know what, Kenny Golladay, Metcalf, insert other guys here. It's really hard not to say, okay, that's intriguing, because you got Kerryon coming back. That's a piece we really liked. So I'm with you on that, but offensive line's got to be one that you're comfortable with. You take inventory and you stick with what you got. That to me is the first thing you need to check off as a stay away for me. The only thing I really want to talk about, because though he didn't really do anything at the combine other than getting measured, somehow he's just sprung to the top. And this one's right for you, Jay, because I know how much you love Oklahoma quarterbacks. You're a big fan of Oklahoma quarterbacks. So Kyler Murray at number 1. Does it make sense? And if Kyler Murray goes number 1, are you going to betray your boy Baker Mayfield and jump on the Murray bandwagon?
No, I'm still very much pro Baker, but correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just ignorant because I am in a lot of things.
Okay.
How do you get invited to a combine where all you have to do is get measured and not put in any work? Like, no reps. Like, I get it. You are the best quarterback in the class, and no one's questioning that, but the dude didn't have to do anything. He just showed up and someone put a tape measure to the top of his dumbass head, and that was it. Like, that was his combine. His combine was to stand still. Maybe I'm not thinking rationally. That makes no goddamn sense that he just got to stand there and do nothing, and now he's going to be the first overall pick. I don't like where that sits.
You're not thinking unrationally. I will say that you're actually have a rational thought, but the thing is, it's not uncommon.
No.
Over the years, as someone who was as a former quarterback, watched quarterback combine religiously, watched everything, knew everything. I will say that a lot of the big name guys did not throw at the combine. A lot of them save it for their pro day, because they're in your pro day. It's your call. You can script everything how you want. You make it so it highlights your best features. At the combine, you have to do whatever they give you. And if your strong suit isn't throwing of accurate 70-yard deep ball, that flaw is gonna show up. If you're not a guy who can hit that 10-yard out route perfectly, if you're not someone who really has the Drew Brees accuracy, that's gonna show. It's one of those things.
I get it. I like to compare it to the real world. That's like me taking my resume into a future potential employer, and my resume just has my name on it, and I don't care about anything else. And this is who I am. So hire me or fire me.
No, I get that.
Well, look at it this way, though. What question did they have about Kyler Murray? Right? There was 2 questions. Is he going to play football or baseball? Well, we got the answer to that one. The other question wasn't, can he throw? Wasn't, can he run? It was, how tall is he?
Yeah, everybody wanted his height.
Right, so he came there to answer the one question that everyone had for him. And you know what? It came back 5'10". Didn't come back 5'8", like some people were trying to throw out there.
Yeah.
So he did the only thing he needed to, and he did it well enough.
Exactly. And,
Drink your milk, kids.
and he is...
That's how you get tall.
It's true. And he, I did not drink enough milk as a kid, apparently. As someone, and that's the thing, Jay, he was a Heisman Trophy winner, an All-American. He's not going to not get the invite. The only real thing he could have done to make it worse was just not accept the invite and just not go to the combine at all. He had to be there. He had to show his face. He had to do the minimal things that are going to answer the questions. Because like Russ said, his height was the big thing. Is he even tall enough? Like, everybody's saying he's 5'8", 5'9". He has to go prove, well, guess what? I'm the same height as Russell Wilson. I'm the same height as him. I'm, in my opinion, because watching the guy enough, I genuinely don't believe that Baker Mayfield is 6 feet tall, but that is what it is. So I'm an inch or two shorter than Baker Mayfield. All these shorter quarterbacks that you're okay with, I'm right there with them. I fit that that mold. Not to mention, I've got a pretty big arm. He can heave it downfield. So in that throwing and all that and running and all that, it would have there was more potential for it to hurt him than it would have helped him. At his pro day, Lincoln Riley's going to build him a playlist of things that are going to fit him perfectly. They're going to be the top 10 plays they used with him every single day. All the go-to plays, because it's going to highlight his ability. He's going to look like a perfect player for all these guys that are scouting him. And to be honest, I don't think he should be the number one pick. You drafted Josh Rosen last year. Sure, if you're going to draft Kyler, you're probably going to trade Rosen. And from what I hear, he's probably going to Washington. But I don't think Kyler Murray is ready, because if Kyler Murray to me seems like a guy that doesn't really know what he wants to do. He kept baseball in his back pocket way too long. Let's be honest. He knew halfway through the season he wasn't going to go play baseball. He was going to play in the NFL. He knew it. The second he started getting in those Heisman talks, he knew the NFL was where he was going. But he kept baseball because if he goes out there and has a shit year, he still has baseball to fall back on. If he goes to training camp now, it's all on him. If he has a bad year or a bad training camp and he isn't the starter, he can't call Oakland and go, you still want me? Because that's not going to happen. So we'll see, but I don't think Kyler should be the number one overall pick. That's not to say he shouldn't be one of the first quarterbacks taken. I just don't think, if you're Arizona, Rosen didn't have a terrible year. You have a lot of other problems that need addressing. Why don't you deal with those before you take Kyler? Because if you take Kyler and he's a big swing and a miss, they fired a guy after 1 year. What's to say they're not going to fire Cliff Kingsbury after 1 year? So we'll see what happens, but I am not for Kyler being the number one pick. I just do not think it is a smart move. So I know Jay is ready for it, though, because Jay loves Oklahoma quarterbacks. He's so ready for it. Jay, I could 100% see you buying a Arizona Cardinals jersey with Kyler's name on the back of it.
Ooh, something that he did not do at the combine. That's a hard pass. Not interested.
Not interested? Not even a little bit?
Not even a soft pass. He didn't do shit. I'm not going to do shit.
Okay, that's fair. Can't fault you for it. Next thing we're going to talk about is our favorite thing to talk about. We're going to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. Guys, how much Jay, how much are you enjoying this lovely, lovely tank by the Detroit Red Wings?
We're going on a very nice streak here. I think we've put together 6 or 7 games without putting up a W. I'm completely fine with it. Whatever, this time last year, if I could just grab Ken Holland and whisper something into his ear, it would be continue to lose for a better draft position. What do? They strung together wins last year at the end of this, at the end of the season, which pissed me off. So they just need to continue. This season's done. I've washed my hands of it. Just keep losing. Let Anthony Mantha continue to put up some production, and let's all just pack our shit up and go home. So I'm okay with what they're doing right now.
Okay. Russ, I know you're right there with them. You're all for the tank, and let's see it all burn to the ground. So there's no other way to say it. As someone who wants to see his teams win, it's hard for me to jump on the bandwagon with you guys for this. But at the same time, I understand it. There's room for improvement. That's what we're looking for. As as we look ahead to this week, we've got Colorado tonight, Rangers on Thursday. My computer's being nice and slow. And then we have Tampa Bay on Saturday. Oh, Stevie Y. Stevie can get an up-close look at the team he's going to take over for next year. And then Florida on Sunday. So as we look ahead to these 4 games, any chance the Lions? I am so off of it today, kids.
Yikes!
So off
Speaking
of it
of
today.
mediocrity,
Well, I'm literally. We just got done talking about the Lions. As I'm scrolling through to find what I need, I just saw that Kenny Galladay tattoo picture on my phone. So my head's everywhere. Any chance Wings? Any chance we have a good shot at putting a W up in the column?
out of those 4 games, yeah, I think they can get one. I mean, the Rangers are a team that's equally in the tank here. Just traded away a lot of their talent. Really, just has the Zibanejad to speak of back there.
Yep.
And Lundqvist isn't even Lundqvist of old at this point. So yeah, that's definitely a shot. And with how bad Florida's goaltending is, you've always got a chance to beat Florida. So you could score 3 goals on 7 shots. That might be all you need.
That is true.
So I put the over-under on 1.5 wins out of those, but it's going to be real close to that.
Okay. Now, the question I would ask you, Jay, is did you see Chris Ilitch's comments about Steve Yzerman coming to Detroit when asked earlier this week?
Yeah, that he sneaked in that cute little sentence about all he knows is the contract's up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, as someone who has made it clear you were ready for Steve to come back, is that a cute little comment that gives you hope, or a cute little comment that thinks he's just playing to the media and giving them something to talk about?
Probably both. I mean, he's saying something that's factual, but it's almost like a sensitivity around here. You mentioned the great one, or the captain, or the local legend here. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's happening! It's happening!" So I think if anything, it's like a tease. I mean, if it doesn't happen, I would like to know why the hell it didn't. But he's right. The contract's up, and Yzerman better be coming home.
Yzerman better become.
Better.
Jay almost sounded like he was sad that it might not happen toward the end. Contracts, Yzerman better be coming home. He better.
I've already, in my head, I've already put together narratives of how we survived this trying time in our childhood of Red Wing depression. I feel like the light at the end of the tunnel is there. We just need Yzerman to grab my hand and pull me out, and we're all going to be fine. And we survived it together.
That's fair. All right, now. Jay's got his rainbow, and he's very happy. He's enjoying all the beautiful colors. But Russ, Steve Yzerman coming here. It's time to face facts. Steve Yzerman coming here is not an automatic recipe for a guaranteed turnaround. So Yzerman coming here, that's all good and well. But if Yzerman's coming here, what are the things in your opinion he needs to do right off the bat to adjust and get us back on the right course?
Clear some roster space to get more of the young kids up. So we've got a log jam of defensive prospects right now.
Yep.
We know about Chalowski, we know about Hronek because we've seen a lot of them, but guys like Libor Sulak, you gotta start cycling through, give these guys a shot next year. Some of them I don't mind if they go over that 10-game limit. Some of them, hopefully we can just get a look at the 9 games and not burn a year off their entry-level deal. But that's what it's got to be. Next year's got to be a development one. Right now, if the Wings finish where they're at, they got a 26.5% chance of getting a top 2 pick, the second best chance out of anybody. If that hits, the rebuild speeds up a little bit more. That you're either going home with Hughes or Kakko, but it's still. Sid didn't win his first year. McDavid didn't win his first year. Right? It doesn't fix it that first year, not even the second year. But start building around it. Start getting rid of any other contracts that you can. Please do not make a big free agent signing of an aging veteran to go, hey, well, we got to have a good guy in the room and we got to try and win games. You can try and win games with young players too and find out and move your team forward. I want this team to win desperately. But I don't want to cut off my nose to spite my face. Right? I want them to win the cup. I don't want them to limp to 2 games out of the playoffs. Right? Let's do it right. Let's build it up. Let's God, please get some young kids up here and give them a shot.
Get this thing back on track. I'm with you. Jay, I mean, is there anything you can add to that, or is that kind of the perfect recipe?
It's kind of like when we hired our new, got our new GM here for the Lions. I want to make sure that Eisman's got his guy controlling everything. Blashill was with Grand Rapids, and he had success, and he's had some of those guys come up and become, the core of the Wings now. But Blashill's record, regardless of what he's given, I feel like Blashill kind of just like walks in the room and everyone tells him how he's going to coach. Yeah. I don't know if it's because he's not as demonstrative and he's not in your face and with the media. He's pretty laid back, but I would hope that Yzerman has his guy, and if his guy is Blashill, good, because Russ has it nailed. If it happens, you take a deep breath and go, okay, here we go, and it's like opening up a whole new book, and you got to let it give it time to actually mature into something. I just hope we have the right coach, because we've had legends that have coached this team, and we need to go back to having that type of stature on the bench.
All right. You guys kind of covered it. I don't really think there's anything I can add to this that would make it sound any more logical. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a little best of to do early on in the year because we won't really have a play of the week. So when we come back, we're going to do our best of when you look back at this laundry list of players, who is the toughest Red Wing of all time? There's plenty to choose from, plenty of arguments you can make for each of them. So when we come back, we're going to do that right after this.
Hi, this is Jason Pinkett from Pucking Around and Spinning the Wheels on Sports Radio Detroit. Check us out every Sunday over on the SRD Hockey feed on Spotify, TuneIn Radio, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. That's SRD Hockey in your search bar. New episodes every week.
This is Armchair Sports Talk.
All right, we're back here on Armchair Sports Talk, and before we went to break, we said we are going to come up with our choices for who the toughest Red Wing of all time is. Lots to choose from, but I think it's fair to say we're going to have to go back a little bit because I don't think any of the guys on the current or recent teams is going to qualify for that criteria. So,
you mean you don't want to put Eriksson up there?
Russ,
good God.
Remember how you said you were going to hang up earlier? If you ever say that again, I'm going to hang up on you. I guess you spoke first, so we'll let you have it, Russ. Who is the toughest Red Wing of all time?
Oh, now I'm going to regret speaking first. So there is it's a huge list that you can go through here.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to try not to name all of them because I know you guys have got a lot of thoughts, and I've done that before, and I regretted it. So I'm gonna stick to one, and hopefully we'll have more of a back and forth discussion later. But I thought I'd go a little off the board here, with really who came to my mind first, as in the toughest person I could possibly think of. This guy was in the hospital the day of a playoff game, checked himself out of the hospital, went to the game, earned a shutout, and then had to limp back to the hospital that same night.
Okay.
Mr. Terry Sawchuk had more than 400 stitches in his face, broke his nose twice. He had 2 of the discs removed in his back, broke his left foot, broke 7 ribs, broke his right elbow. In all of the crazy stories that we hear of guys getting punched in the head and it feeling like a sledgehammer to the head, well, this guy willingly took a frozen rubber disc to the face repeatedly, game after game after game, until, well, he died after an altercation with a teammate at about age 40. This being a tough son of a bitch in the net is the only thing Terry Sawchuk ever knew. And I know if I'm going into a fight, I want the crazy guy who's got 400 stitches and willingly is looking for number 401. So a little off the board, but I think we got to at least mention Terry Sawchuk in this because, man, to see his face was to see his toughness.
Yeah, I will agree with you. A little off the board, maybe not necessarily one that would have been the first thing to come to mind, but if you're going to talk about toughness, and it's a generalized topic because toughness can be anything. It can be that guy that's going to get his butt kicked every night, but he's still tough enough to come back every night and do it. Guy who's, like you said, willing to stand in front of a net when that thing's coming at you. Sawchuk is definitely someone who has to be on the list He's right up there at the top, and it's a tough one to argue. But Justin, if you got to make an argument, who are you making your argument with?
Well, now if we do a Twitter poll on this, I'm going to have to vote for Russ's again. Like, this
No!
is funny. God, you presented an excellent case there. I mean, I'm spitballing over here in a little bit, but Bob Probert. I mean, he just.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
He got called upon, and he knew why he was on the ice. And obviously, that's a pretty small understanding of his role on the hockey team, but he was just tough as nails, man. And news release. I don't read books, but a couple of the books I have read in my lifetime was a whole entire understanding of Probert and his whole life and his legacy with the Wings and the things he dealt with off the ice and the drug addiction. And there's a lamp pole in downtown Detroit near the Lafayette Towers that he wrapped a red Corvette around, and I see that lamp pole every single week. And I try to understand his issues that he had trying to go across the border to go play in Canada and getting kicked out of that country, and the team taking chances on him, and just the way that he got called upon for an organization that gave him more chances than he probably should have had. And he, with all the off-the-ice shit that he had, he still laced him up, and he still chucked fists at people's faces all day long. He fought some of the best fighters in a sport that allows fighting. And when you talk about Ted Lindsay and his grit and his ability to, be a goal scorer and produce penalty minutes, and then talk about Probert just being a complete package of a guy, given the circumstances of what he dealt with life, like that just exemplifies the ability to be tough both off and on the ice. And it's tragic how it ended, but I think he'll always be remembered in this city for being the toughest shit. So it's probably for me.
Yeah, I don't really think you can argue that. The guy was he was one of the best. So both are amazing choices, and like Jay said, it's gonna be hard not to vote for Russ's because Russ threw that curveball in there that no one was really seeing coming. Before I give mine, because mine's a little bit of you can definitely argue for it, you can definitely argue against it, but before we do that, a couple honorable mentions. I think Gordie Howe has to be in there because that guy could The guy was an elite scorer. He was literally what Gretzky and them and Kane and Crosby are today. But the problem was he also had the toughness of Probert. He had the ability to, score the goal and then on the next play turn around and fight the guy. He really was the most complete hockey player. If you're going to talk about a complete guy that can do everything, that five-tool, we say for baseball, he was the five-tool hockey guy. He could do everything. So I think he has to be in there. We talked about him for quite a while earlier in the show. Ted Lindsay, if you're going to put a Mount Rushmore up there, he's right there. Everyone we're going to mention on this list, he actually, one of them he probably did fight. I wouldn't be surprised to find out he had fought Terry Sawchuk at some point. But he would have dropped gloves with any of them. There's nobody in the league today he would have been afraid to take on. And he was another guy like that. He could still play the game of hockey. He had the ability to do that. So those all great choices. Mine, if you do the math here, there's one guy I haven't mentioned who was on that little picture I sent you. And this is why I say it's a bit of a reach. Mine is going to actually be number 25, Mr. Druggy, Darren McCarty. And it's going to be that Mr. Druggy. The guy had a lot of problems off the ice.
He had some demons, yeah.
He did. And my reason for doing this, it's not that he could do it better, but when looking at the stats and looking at everything else, Jay, you had a great choice. He's one of the greatest of all time at what he did. But when I look at it, Proby could still play hockey. He could still, aside from one goal against Philadelphia in the Stanley Cup, Darren McCarty was not known for much else. Darren McCarty went onto the ice every night knowing his only job out there was to knock out anybody that touched Stevie, that touched Sergei, that touched Shanny. His job was to go out there and fight every night, no matter what. If you got a dump goal every once in a while, that's great, fantastic. But Darren went out there knowing he had to fight every single night, no matter what. Proby did too, but Proby could also play hockey. I've watched documentaries on him, I've heard it. They've all said he was a great fighter, but guess what? He could still play the game. He still had the ability to play hockey. It's questionable about Darren. Darren was good, but he wasn't ever known for anything about that. So for me, he was on a team with a bunch of guys that were elite level scorers, fantastic players, and he was the guy that was kind of He was the odd man out. He was the one that had to go out and do the dirty work every night, and he did it great. Never backed down, never questioned it, knew his role, and he accepted it and was great at it. So in making this list, I went over everybody. I thought about it. There were some great choices, but I have to go with Darren McCarty. He was another guy that I don't think there's anybody in the league anywhere that he would ever been afraid to go up against. And he did it pretty well every time he did it. So that would be my choice.
He did, and that's a guy that's fought battles off and on the ice his entire career, and to his credit, he is still fighting and still trying to get clean and stay clean. So he's got a lot of toughness and perseverance to him in every sense of the word there.
Well, and when you talk about that, I mean, if we're going to talk about toughness as a generalized thing, doesn't necessarily have to be the guy that's afraid to fight. This is a guy who, for most of his career, was a not a legend, but a big name in Detroit. He was someone, everybody knew who he was. He swallowed his pride after being out of the league and saying, you know what, I want to keep playing hockey. Swallowed his pride, called Draper and said, I want to get back into this game. I'll do whatever I have to do. Went down to Flint, rode the buses and played hockey, moved up to Grand Rapids, did what he had to do to claw his way back to being a Detroit Red Wing. And he swallowed his pride and did whatever they asked him to do. He could have, people could have said, no, you screwed your chances. You have no potential to get back here. But he swallowed his pride, busted his ass, and he got back. And that's tough. That's got to be tough for someone who your whole life you were an NHL hockey player to be to the lowest of lows and, do what you have to do to get back. That's toughness, and that adds to it. It really does. It's not just the fact that he wasn't afraid to drop the gloves. He was tough, mentally. And, as a guy someone who's a fan, I really do wish him the best. I hope he's able to get clean. No one likes seeing all these guys on these reunion nights, and you see Darren McCarty, and he looks like he's 60 years older than everybody else because he's just, he's so battled down and worn out. So it's tough. It is.
Can I throw in one more honorable mention?
Absolutely.
Just because he's a lunatic for doing it, but he's well known for putting stationary bikes in saunas, and it's got to be Chris Chelios.
Chelly, yeah.
Like, just the fact that you think you need to exercise in a sauna where you're, depriving yourself of, rich oxygen. That's just, I don't know how the hell you do that. So just for that small little moment.
Yeah. I mean, Chelly, like I said, we're giving you this list, but there's a million people you can bring up along the way that could be a part of this. It's just so happened these are the guys. I mean, if you're going to talk craziness, we could talk about Jay's boy Vernon coming out into the middle of the ice and just beating that ass on Patrick Waugh. That's someone else you can. I mean, he was a short-lived guy, but Red Wings, they seem to attract some crazies. We can definitely get some characters. We're good for that.
Absolutely.
So
it's a long storied history of punching people in the face.
Long storied history. When you're Hockey Town, you got to do everything right. So I guess if we're going to do, and again, there's no offense here. If you leave one guy's choice off, there's no offense to it. But if we're putting together our top threes here, I mean, we've mentioned a bunch of names. I'll go first, give you guys a chance. If you're mentioning names, just off of everything we've encapsulated what toughness is, there's 1, 2, and 3 doesn't make a difference. These are just 3. So if your guy's 3, it's not to say that he's not the best. Mine has to be Darren McCarty, Proby, and the late great Ted Lindsay. Those would be my 3 for the 3 toughest people to ever put the wing wheel on and play the game of hockey for the Detroit Red Wings. Ted Lindsay, Darren McCarty, Bob Probert. Those are my 3. Jay, you got a 3?
God, as much as I want to put Cicerelli in there, just because
no,
I love the man, but the guys we're talking about paved the way for the Cicerellis.
Absolutely.
It's Proby, it's Lindsay, and Sawchuk. That's who takes pucks to the face.
Yeah,
you gotta talk about Sawchuk too. That's
okay.
Checked out.
Okay, that's fair. So Lindsay, Proby, Sawchuk. I'm seeing Lindsay and Proby probably going to be on all 3 lists, is what I'm assuming here. But Russ, are you going to surprise us? Or are you going to go with the unanimous sweep here?
There is no surprise there. I was actually waffling between Lindsay and Sawchuk because I wanted to bring in an old school guy into the conversation.
Yep.
And really, you can't even start to have this conversation about toughest Red Wing without talking about Probert.
Yeah.
So not to exactly copy Jay, but I'm going to exactly copy Jay with Sawchuck, Probert, and Mr. Ted Lindsay.
Mr. Ted Lindsay. And like I said, there's two of the three are they are, top three no matter what. You can add in anyone else you want in this list. Ted Lindsay, Proby, they both like you said, they paved the way for everybody else. And they're just amazing. It's an interesting list because when you think Red Wings, you think Cups, and we have all these guys who are such great scorers and were phenomenal at the game of hockey. But if you asked to put together a list of elite scorers for the Red Wings, I think you'd have a harder time doing that than you would coming up with tough-ass people that played hockey for us. It just seems like a list that could never end. So
Dan Cleary.
Oh, you shut your mouth.
And Justin, why? Why would you do that, dude? We almost made it through no joke. We almost made it through a full show without me having to do this.
Why are you the way that you are?
Literally, we almost got all the way through.
But
because Dan Cleary teaches a hockey school when he doesn't know how himself to play hockey.
But that doesn't do anything for his toughness or ability to score. That just proves he's a moron.
He can ride a scooter, though.
Terry Sawchuck took pucks to the face and he had more sense than Dan Cleary. What does that tell you?
Dude, big shout out to Dan Cleary's marketing team for never getting back to me on my email. I still want a Dan Cleary hoodie or a hat or something, but I must have ended up in their spam folder or something.
Yeah,
you know what?
Spam folder.
Legitimately, the way he talks about him, when it comes to Dan Cleary and his marketing team, I think this is how Jay feels.
Like I want to have like a three-way with both of them.
That's legitimately how I think
know.
he feels. This man has a serious thing for Dan Cleary. He really does. It's borderline creepy, Jay. Do you lay awake every night staring at that scooter picture of Dan Cleary?
I mean, I think he's still scooting around GR.
Oh, that's good. So, yep, that would be our picks for toughest. As always, listen. We'll put the Twitter up on our Twitter. Russ, what's that Twitter again?
It's at Sports Armchair. We got videos, polls, posts coming to you every week.
Yeah. What's hilarious is I know what the Twitter is, but I still make Russ say it every time. It's quite fun.
Yeah, it keeps me awake.
Keeps you awake. Yeah, make sure you're actually listening to this because Lord knows when Jay talks, I don't listen very often, so I got to check that you're listening when I talk.
My man.
We'll have it up. Well, as always, we want to hear comments, thoughts. If we forgot someone, if we maybe ranked someone a little higher than we should have, let us know. That's why we don't mind being proven wrong because Lord knows we are wrong quite a bit. So, last thing, it's baseball's coming up. We talked about it very briefly towards the end of the show, just giving input. But I've been sitting here for some odd reason the computer's just stuck on this page, so I've been sitting here looking at it and it's making me more and more mad. I asked Russ before the show, explain to me how a guy who didn't bat above 250 2 out of the last 3 years gets a 13-year, $330 million contract. And Russ tried his best, but my simple mind can't comprehend how Bryce Harper got the deal he got. So when you look at it, this season he gets a $10 million salary plus a $20 million signing bonus, paid in 2 installments. He gets one on June 1st, one on November 1st. Then from 2020 to 2028, he gets $26 million annually. And then from 2029 to 2031, he gets $22 million annually. So he gets a nice chunk of change for the next, 13 years. But when we talk about this contract, one, he didn't necessarily, Russ, have the numbers to back up this major deal the last couple years. Everybody knows he's he's one of the best players in the league. He's had, some rough patches. He was quoted as saying he wanted to play at a park that was, a little, home run friendly. But what does this contract do for free agency going forward? We all know we're on that steady incline to, by the time we're all, said and done, kick the bucket, we're probably going to see a $500 million contract. It's more than likely going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But this contract does what for free agency in baseball going forward?
So the dirty little secret is it probably doesn't do very much at all.
Okay.
If you look 5 years ago, Giancarlo Stanton signed almost the exact same deal.
Yep.
It was $325 million over 13 years. So you want to toss in inflation, the difference is probably close to negligible. Right? Their average salary per year is $300,000 different.
Yeah.
So they were both young guys. I think Stanton was 24 at the time when he signed his contract. Bryce Harper's 25. I think he might have turned 26 by now. Not entirely sure on that, but both of them, Harper had won an MVP. Giancarlo was in the race for an MVP. It comes down to owners, fans, chicks love the long ball. And that's what both of these guys can do. And they're banking on a young guy having a good career. 13 years is a long time.
It is.
But we saw some of the other ones with Machado and Arenado. It's not like they got 13-year deals. We'll see a few of these. Maybe it becomes a little more frequent, and maybe that's the change that we see in the market. But it happened later. He doesn't have one of the highest-paying yearly salaries now. If anything, this might be showing that the market's depressing, that 5 years later, the contract's only $5 million more. Especially with the timing being so late in the process, so close to the start of the season, him actually getting signed. So,
yeah.
Is it a huge contract? Yeah, it's the largest contract in sports right now, outside of something that Canelo Alvarez had signed. So it's a huge one, but I don't think it's so far out of the realm that it's going to break the market.
Okay, that's fair. I guess the answer is you answered the question how I asked it, so and that is fair. I guess I'll reword it just to see if maybe my thought process as you went through this has changed at all. You look at a guy like Machado, a guy who's I don't know his numbers off the top of my head, but I know for a fact you hear his name night in and night out, so he presumably had to have had a couple good years in a row to merit the contract he got. You look at a guy like Bryce. We said he had injuries, he had problems, and it's not like he batted 125 and hit 3 home runs every year. He actually had numbers to justify. But what I'm trying to say is contract year comes up. For most, and baseball is a whole different monster, I get that. But for most sports, contracts are based on performance and what you do for that team lately. Bryce Harper, the argument could be did not exactly do the great that he should be expected to do night in and night out for the last couple of years. So what I'm saying is, what does this do for baseball and contracts going forward that you don't necessarily have to bat 400 and hit 50 home runs to get the big deals? Well,
like Machado didn't bat forward. Machado's never been over 300 in his career, but he hits home runs, right? He's had over 30 the last 4 years.
Yep.
So to kind of put that into perspective, it just shows that guys that can hit home runs consistently, if you're hitting more than 30, you're gonna get paid, and you're gonna get paid a lot if you can do it at a young age. But baseball's kind of broken when it comes to contracts. I mean, 9 of the 10 largest contracts in sports right now are baseball contracts.
Yeah.
Guys like Dontrelle Willis, when he came to the Tigers, got handed a giant contract before he had played a game for the Tigers, right? Before he had really done anything outside of 1 year with the Marlins. Baseball is apparently flush with this cash that they will give to young players with promise. Even more so, lefty arms that are perceived to be top-end starters, and guys that can hit the long ball. If we're going to take anything out of this, it's going to be that those are the guys that are going to get paid an absolute ton. I mean, looking at the top baseball contracts, Harper, Stanton, Machado, A-Rod, his contract's still up there. Arenado, A-Rod's previous contract, Cabrera, Pujols, and Cano. Those are the top baseball contracts of all time as far as dollars to the contract. They're all big-time home run hitters.
Yeah.
And that's where it's going to continue to be. It would suck to be a utility second baseman who can hit 320 but only hit 4 home runs, because, sorry, buddy, you're getting underpaid.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like I said, I didn't know Machado's numbers, but as I look at it, he's about ballpark 50 hits more. He only hit about 4 more home runs last year than Bryce did. Batting average is .297 compared to Bryce's .249. Everything else is pretty close. He's only about 4 or 5 RBIs above. So yes, the numbers are close. And like I said, I was not trying to say that Bryce Harper didn't merit the deal he got, because Lord knows he's been one of the best players in the league since he came into the league. Outside of those injuries, it's just, for me, someone who can't understand that, this exorbitant amount of money you're making to do this, when you've got teachers and, police officers and firemen who, barely scrape by, but you're, all you do is sit around all day and then whack a ball. It doesn't always add up. So for me, it should be performance-based. So when you see a guy have, by MLB standards, a few subpar years, and yet he's cashing in on a $330 million contract where he's going to get paid $26 million over the next 8 years, or each year for the next 8 years, it's just a little tough. So it makes me, it makes me a little cautious of what's going to happen when the next big name hits free agency if he hasn't had the big years to merit it, but he's still going to shell out for a, $350+ million contract. So it is what it is. It's professional sports has become its own beast. So we'll see what happens there.
How about him dropping the ball though as soon as he's getting interviewed? He's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to bring a championship to DC." Whoops! It's like, dude, you got 13 years to get it right. You better start now.
And Philly's not a place you want to mess up. Those fans will eat you alive. So, and we'll see. I mean, like you said, Russ, and Jay, he's got 13 years. You got to assume there's going to be some other pieces added to that. Like you said, he didn't take the max deal and kill their cap. He's getting his money, but there's still, money to spend. So we'll see. He could turn it around. He really could. But Jay, for our show, we're not big baseball people. We don't really, not that we're not big baseball people. We just don't really cover it. We've got a few other sports we're a little more inclined to talk about. But from an outside perspective, someone who, really doesn't have investment in Bryce Harper, he's not he doesn't have any tie to Detroit, nothing that. When you see these kind of contracts, it's got to be a little, tough to swallow that, like I'm saying, that these guys are making this kind of money to do something, that really doesn't contribute anything to society other than pastime.
Yeah, like when you try to take it into context of it's a sport, but it's also real life, and you get to go home at the end of the day with that money, it's outrageous. But staying within the confines of the sport, the fact that he got 13 years on term, I don't know if that's normal in baseball, but I can't even keep a guy on my fantasy team for 13 days. And the fact that this dude's going to get linked at, who knows what he's going to be in 5 years from now, where the sport's going to be at, So I just, when I started hearing anything over 10 years, what the Wings did with Franzen and Zetterberg at the time, so I think those are terms, those are terms that were over 10 years. It's just no one knows what the hell's happening in a decade from here. You can't predict a decade away. So he got a lot of money, which, going out of sports again, no one needs that much money. That's outrageous. But, it's his skill set that he's got, and someone wants to pay him for that long. It's just, God, where is the ceiling, man? That's the scary part when you pull yourself away from it all.
Hey, to throw into your Red Wings comparison, he did get the full Kenny Holland treatment. No trade protection, full length of the contract.
What a joke! See, this is monopoly money, man. This is just ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. It is ridiculous. The amount of money these people make to do this is, it is absurd. There's no reason behind it. But at the same time, if you don't have these sports, this show doesn't exist, because that's all we do is talk about sports. So in a way, we're kind of, tooting horns for no real reason. There's nothing, there's nothing's going to change about it. As long as a guy can hit a ball, over a wall, and someone can throw a ball 80 yards, and someone can, shoot a puck into a net better than the rest of them, we're going to hear about these big contracts. We're going to hear about these players, and, as entertaining as it is, because it really is entertaining. I don't know about you guys, there's not a lot more that I find entertaining than watching sports. It's something that definitely grabbed me from an early age and hasn't let go, but I think we're reaching a point now where it's about to become insanely sad how much money these people make to do the things they do. So, or maybe they could just start giving me the money. That would be a little bit better. I'd be happy to take a little bit off their hands. We'll call it the Eric Dorsch charity. You help me and a little bald guy who we both need the money. We'd be happy to take it off your hands.
I wouldn't hold my breath on that one.
I never do.
I resent the little part. I got weighed in and checked, and I'm definitely 5'10".
Oh, he was at the combine.
Did you throw?
Yeah, no, I didn't need to. I'm
Didn't
probably going to go into baseball.
Oh, you go to base. It's bad. But lastly, last little thing. I have one more question for Russ. I'll ask in a second. Lastly, did either of you guys, because I think this is a great thing. He does it every year now, knowing he's going to embarrass himself. But did either of you guys get a chance to see Rich Eisen run his 40 at the Combine?
Oh, God.
No,
Because it goes to
I assume
charity.
It looks like
What he does
every other year.
It does, but it goes to charity. Everything, people donate and all that, and it's a great cause. He knows he's going to look like a joke. He ran a blazing time, guys, 6 seconds flat, just perfect. But I give him credit; does it in the full suit, and he's a Michigan man. Lord knows I love him. He's a great guy. He's a lot of fun. The thing I enjoyed most about it was they actually overlapped other guys running, and you never realize how slow 6 seconds really is until you see someone who ran a 4.2 just blaze right by him. It is tough to swallow. It really is. But it's a great thing. Always fun to see. It's kind of a highlight of the Combine for me, just to see this guy fully know that he's gonna be embarrassed as hell, but it's for a good cause. My last question to Russ. The show's almost over, buddy. You sure you don't want to weigh in on this whole PGA drop rule? I mean, it's causing a lot of problems on the tour right now, and we really want to know what you have to say.
I'll bite. What the hell is this rule?
All right, so in the PGA, if you have to take a penalty stroke, or if your ball gets embedded somewhere that they didn't have time to repair, you have to take a drop. You can't just roll the ball. You have to pick it up, and you have to take a league-approved drop. So if the ball goes in the water. So what you do is, it used to be you would hold the ball in your hand, arm length out, straight, so you're straight with your shoulder, and you would drop it. And then wherever it landed, that would be where you hit from. Now, the PGA, because the PGA had a hard time with the ball would roll, and they don't want that. They want it to drop and stay. So the ball would roll. So people had to drop 3 or 4 times, and it was wasting a lot of time. So they changed the rule to now you can drop it from your knee. So it's a very small drop, but it's causing a lot of problems because it's stupid and makes no sense. And PGA players who have been playing on the tour for 20, 30 years aren't remembering to do it. And if you drop the ball the old way, you get assessed a penalty. And it's causing people a lot of problems. Ricky Fowler the other day asked if he could literally, because it's so dumb, drop it from his butt so it looked like he shit the ball. And so there's been a lot of rule changes. You can now leave the flag in when you're putting. You used to not be able to do that. So a lot of PGA players are having a hard time and are not too happy with the rule changes. So I'm asking you, as this hot topic comes up, your thoughts on the changing of something that they've been doing for 100 years.
Well, I don't like using the logic that, this is the way we've always done it, so that's the way we should do it. But it seems like it's solving a problem that isn't really there.
Yeah.
Like this, what real value are we really getting out of this? That, all right, you have to drop it 3 or 4 more times. What, we're worried about golf taking a little bit longer? I'm sorry, I'm going to add 3 minutes to your 6-hour sport. Like, come on, what are we actually doing here? It's changed for the sake of change's sake, and it's not really solving a problem, I don't think. Or if it is, it's a minimal problem. No, drop your balls however you're going to drop your balls. Just don't do it in front of me, please.
That's fair. All right, I'm putting it in now. Russ Ivanak for PGA Commissioner 2022. I'm putting it in. The only other rule I want to change, because Jay sent me the video. Jay, I like your new way of getting out of the sand. I think that's an ideal way to do it, and I'm going to start doing it. Jay sent me a video today, Russ, of a guy pretending to hit the ball out of a bunker. So he made the sand fly, and then he tossed the ball with his hand onto the. And I think it's an ideal move. I think it's a good play, Jay. You need to get a hold of the PGA. Show them this. Let them know that this is how it should be done. For us,
that would be my
hackers,
ball drop move too. I'd pretend to drop it from shoulder height and just roll it out my left hand.
Jay, you'd be the guy that. You'd be the guy that cuts a hole in your pocket and just drops the ball out of the pocket.
Oh, thank God. That's where you went with the whole pocket.
That's where I went.
A hole on the outside, not on the inside.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us here on Armchair Sports Talk. As always, great time, great show. Love talking it. as we wrap it up, we started on a somber note. I think it's tough to say, but we're gonna have to end it on a somber note. One last time, our wishes to the Ted Lindsay's family. The guy was an amazing, amazing person. He's an icon here in Detroit and will be for a very long time. What he did paved the way for Detroit being hockey town, and it's a sad, sad thing. So before we go, one last little goodbye. Russ Ivanak, thanks for being on, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. It was a pleasure. And I think we all embody the spirit of Ted Lindsay on this podcast when he said he played hockey and the only thing he had was effort. Talent he lacked, but effort he had.
Yeah. I think he had some serious talent, but we'll let it be. Justin Marcus, as always, appreciate being on today, buddy.
Hey, anytime I can talk about other fellow short people and all how they're greater than I am, I'll be a part of that discussion every time.
Perfect. We appreciate it. And as always, I'm your host, Eric Dorsch. It's one small step for us, one giant leap back in Detroit sports broadcasting.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.